All right, so my co-host Madison and the guests don't actually know that I'm here recording this video. We just got done with that podcast, and this is not something that I'll typically go and create after I just get done. But obviously, not every podcast can be A class podcast. Some of them have B, C class podcasts, but due to the YouTube algorithm, consistency is really key. So we still have to go through and release those on a weekly basis. But I just wanted to say that our guest today, Kate Delrio, you'll see in the intro here soon, is one of the best podcasts that I've filmed in a long time. It was a true honor to have both of them on here and have the discussion that we did. We gave a bunch of fantastic knowledge and advice on how to get started into a dispositions role in any kind of real estate investments career industry. So please stick around to the very end. I promise you will not want to miss everything that we had discussed. And I truly appreciate from the bottom of my heart all of you that are subscribed and continue to check in on us on a daily or weekly basis. So thank you.
Welcome back to the podcast. If you are looking to ignite your real estate investing, then join us on Investors Unite. I'm your host, Madison Noonemaker.
Alongside another host, Skyler Plotz.
And we have Kate Delrio here with us today. She's known as the Dispo Queen, as I would like to call her. She started as a photographer, right?
I did.
And then transitioned into dispoing properties at a high level. And now she actually...
now I'm the cabinet queen.
Yeah, now she's the cabinet queen. That's a good way to put it.
Well, thank you for coming on, Kate.
I appreciate it.
Of course. So let's dive into your story. I mean, initially you said you started off with photography, which is something that I had just learned about today. So, and along with an interesting fact that we can touch on briefly, I think you know what I'm talking about.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So I had my own photography business for 15 years, and it was great. I mean, I had an awesome partner. We had lots of really cool experiences. We took about 70 high school seniors pictures a year. And we did all the dance studios like in Hershey, Hummelstown area. So my springs were always like a wash. Like I was either in a dance studio or editing, till past midnight. But I also did some political pictures. I actually took pictures 4 times of President Trump. And
Wait, I didn't know.
I did. It was really cool. And I actually took pictures of Eric Trump, his son, and Newt Gingrich, and some speakers of the House. So it was an awesome experience. It was really cool.
Yeah, that's
But
crazy.
yeah, it was.
So was photography like your first passion then?
It was. I always liked photography ever since I was in high school. And then, I started the business with one of my best friends, and it was fun. I mean, we had a great time. We made some money, and
That's awesome.
it was good. Yeah.
Did that directly transfer into like real estate photography, or
It
did you just
didn't. I really kind of fell into real estate like by dumb luck.
Sure.
I went through some personal things in my life and just needed a change.
Yeah.
And my family and friends thought I was crazy. They were like, "Kate, you're so good at photography. This is, all you've done." And I was like, "Guys, I'm done." So I sold my part of the business in December 2020.
sell it back to the other owner?
I did.
Okay.
And I was looking for another job. I mean, I was throwing my application out everywhere, even like the casino. I was like, I don't know what I want to do. Like,
Yeah.
And so I had budgeted out 6 months to find a new job. And
Nice.
so, was putting feelers out everywhere.
Yeah.
And I came across, I actually interviewed with, do you know Brandon Motok?
Yeah.
At
Got him on the
Harrisburg?
podcast.
Okay. Yeah. So I actually interviewed with him first. And he told me about the position, and it was actually for acquisitions at the time, an acquisitions agent.
Okay.
And then I interviewed at Honest Home Solutions. Both companies told me no. And I was like, oh no, I'm going to do this. Like, I know I can do this. This seems like I
So it
can
kinda,
make
like,
money
piqued
there.
your interest a
It
little-
really did. So I kept putting my feelers out. And actually 2 weeks later, both companies called me back and they said, we've thought about it, and we really like you, but we
Yeah.
kind of came up with a different position for you. Like acquisitions might not be the position, but here's a position. And I kind of outweighed them both, and I ended up at Honest Home Solutions. I did end up with Brandon Motok for 2 weeks,
Okay.
and he's great. I love him.
Oh, he was
It
amazing.
just was, I needed a team. I knew nothing about real estate, right?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
You need
just-
some sort of guidance
exactly.
getting into it. Okay.
Yeah.
You were just totally like throwing your application on Indeed, and this is
Oh, yeah.
came across this.
Mhm.
Oh, that's
That's crazy that they both had called you back like almost simultaneously.
Right. They both had hired. They
Like-
both hired a different person.
but
And-
they wanted you for
and then-
something else.
Exactly.
Did they both want you for dispositions?
No, so when I started at Honest Home Solutions, I wasn't hired for dispositions.
Okay.
I was still hired as an acquisitions agent,
Sure.
but I had to get my leads through like senior care facilities, lawyers, estate lawyers, Where else did I go? I went everywhere. Divorce lawyers, you name it. Like I just all day would be in the car, just stopping in, saying hi to people, like inviting people to lunch.
Yeah.
I literally went out to lunch 5 times a week. And I did say to them though that I was like, I'm gonna quit if I gain weight. But no, so it was really fun. It was a lot of it taught me a lot of like building and networking.
Yeah.
But those leads take a while to come in, right? So that's I mean, sometimes you don't get a lead for like 6 months. You just have to keep saying hi, hi, hi.
Yeah.
Making those contacts.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So in the meantime of doing that, I was sitting there and I would watch the inventory board because like every Monday we would, go over inventory on the list.
Yeah.
And at the time, Nico we only had one acquisitions agent, Nico, and he would sell the properties, but he only had about 4 or 5 buyers in his pocket, and if one of those didn't buy the property, one of those guys, or investors, because there's lots of women out there buying,
Yep.
but if one of those investors didn't buy it, it would just sit on the list forever, and then we would release it.
Yeah.
So during that time when I would sit there and watch that, I kind of thought, "Hey, I think I could sell these properties. Like, why not?" Like, Nico just didn't have the time to put into these weird houses, like the extra weird
Find the weird buyer.
Yeah.
Nico was also doing acquisitions as well, right?
Right. He was the only
Nico's
acquisition.
trying to handle both roles.
Right. He was doing both.
And we did also have Nico on a previous podcast
Yeah.
as well. That was a fantastic podcast. I was just thinking about it today.
Aw.
But
Yeah, he's great.
we got to bring him back on at some point.
Oh, he would love that. He
And
loves stuff.
I want to take
He loves the limelight.
Oh, he does. I want to take a step back real quick because you just gave some excellent advice for acquisitions.
Oh.
Just like in terms of your lead generation, could you go back through and just list those couple of like people that you would meet with and whatnot for? Yeah.
Sure. I would stop at senior care facilities because a lot of times, like people to get into a senior care facility, they need a certain amount of money, right? So they're going to need to sell their home.
Yeah.
So we actually a couple times would front. I had a contact at one of the senior care facilities, and she would call me when somebody needed to move in. What do I say? They needed the money up front.
Yeah.
So we would handle all that. We would like front it and then sell, then handle the selling of the house.
Okay.
Mhm.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And then what are some of the other ones you did?
So I would stop
Lawyers,
at
right?
a lot of lawyers, divorce lawyers. Those are good ones because
They're the
sometimes
tricky ones, though.
they are the tricky ones, but they need to like sometimes sell the house fast because of, to settle for the divorce. And estate lawyers, I met with a lot of estate lawyers.
Mhm.
And realtors. Honestly, I spent a lot of time just calling realtors and having lunch with them because what I found is the typical realtor only thinks like they think one way, right? They think like retail sales and not the investor
We've
side.
talked about that before. Like a lot of realtors don't know what seller finance is, don't know what subject to is.
Wholesale even.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, they have no idea.
Right. And I would just cold call
That's
my goodness, I can't even talk. Real estate agents like all the time, and just I would know within 30 seconds if they knew anything about investing or not,
Yeah.
because some of them like thought I was like a scammer. I'm like, I just want to have lunch, just want to tell you what I'm doing.
And that's impressive coming from someone who is just getting started in the real estate industry, where you're able to like kind of weave those people out right away.
Oh yeah,
So you caught on pretty fast then.
yeah. Oh,
Sounds
thank
like.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got a lot
So-
of good leads from realtors.
Okay.
Mhm.
Gotcha. And then, so you saw those leads just sitting up there. Nico obviously didn't have the time to dedicate to actually doing the dispositions.
Correct.
What is the process of dispositions for anybody that doesn't know?
So dispositions is when you are. So I'm not a realtor, but I would sell the properties off market. So Nico would get them, off market under contract, and then I would sell them to investors.
Okay. Gotcha. And after you saw those sitting up there, what kind of like gave you that like, I could sell those? Like what made you think?
Well, I
that?
just started thinking like,
Yeah.
all right, there has to be more buyers than just these like,
Right.
I said 4 to 5 earlier, maybe it was like 5 to 10, you know what I mean? But it was like a certain amount. And if
Right.
it didn't fit their box, they weren't going to buy it.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. So how did you first start going about like networking with more investors that would be potential buyers for these properties? And
So I just went to a lot of meetups. I went to like Lancaster, York, Harrisburg meetups, and I was there all the time. And I just started like putting myself out there, and just say, and then I also started throwing my own meetup.
Okay.
So it started as an evening meetup, and then I moved it to a lunchtime meetup because I thought that fit better with people. Like they wouldn't have to leave their kids. Because really, in this area, like in Central PA, you could be out every night at a real estate meetup if you wanted to be.
there's a lot going on
Mhm.
for sure. I never knew you had your own though. That's pretty cool.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you came to
I came a few
Yeah.
times. And
REI Unplugged. Mhm.
yeah.
I've
Yeah.
heard of it before. I feel like definitely every meetup that I ever went to, we're probably
Always there.
every single one of them.
single
I
time.
have
I was
to
always
visit
so
a little bit.
impressed. Literally.
Yeah.
Well, you
I
have to. You can
Well, yeah,
spend
well,
all
your
your time
kids
just going to
You
meetups.
could.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. That's awesome. So
Yeah.
I did come a little bit prepared.
Okay.
Went over a couple of these questions, but I just want to throw some curveballs at you and just kind
Oh
of see,
boy.
like, where we go from here. So other than just networking, going to the meetups, what were some other strategies that you might have done for Dispo, or like meeting these potential buyers?
So those people who know me know I make like these corny videos on Facebook and like, I mean, Instagram. And I just didn't ever took them too seriously, right? So
Yeah.
I just tried to make them really like uh, just kind of off the cuff, like talk about
Feels
something
really
silly in the
authentic,
house.
yeah.
Yeah, I tried to be authentic in them and not so serious about them.
Yeah.
And I was amazed. Like every time I would post a video, I would get like 5 to 10 new friends that day, or likes.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that started the ball rolling because people would call me then and be like, oh, they also, it showed them that I was busy. You know what I mean? Because
You're actually out
like
there
in one
doing
day I
stuff.
might be in York and then I don't know, out in Reading, so like people, it drew people's attention, and so then they would call me about the properties.
Yeah.
And the crazy things you would post.
Yeah.
Like the weird house situations. You've seen it all.
Oh, I have seen a lot.
I never nervous about coming on the podcast today. I was saying, like, you used to make videos all the time. Like, there's no reason to.
Yeah, but I'm by myself at a property. Does that coordinate?
Right, I get it. It is different.
All right. So kind of goes along the same lines. Whenever you would like meet somebody at one of these meetups, what was your like opening line to them? Just how did you network with these people specifically?
I would just start asking them how they were involved with real estate, if they were, new to real estate. I would ask them to a lot of people to lunch. That was really my main thing.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Just getting to know people and just connecting
Sure.
and then connecting other people. Like I would try to say to them in the room who I thought they should talk to. Like if they told me they were new and looking for a mentor, I would try to match them up to somebody that I knew had been in real estate for a while, and just
Okay.
help
Gotcha.
that way.
So how
I love
that-
connecting people.
You did that for me when I came. I think I was like 18, came to, I forget what meetup it was, but I saw you and then you connected me to someone else.
Right.
You just work the room really well.
Oh, thank you. I do. I like connecting people. I do.
No, absolutely. So one of something I just wanted to bring up real quick was something that really like made me think that you were like extremely good at this position, right? The first time I had ever met you was I saw, well, I didn't see it, but Stephanie had sent me a listing that you were doing, and I was looking for a house hack at the time down in Hummelstown, right?
Oh, I know exactly the house you're talking about.
Exactly. And I feel like before that, I might have ran into you like once or twice. I don't think we ever exchanged words. We might have just said hello or something. And then me and my ex at the time, we went to go view this house, whatnot. And granted, like there was a bunch of buyers there. I think you just hosted like an open house that day or something for everyone to come walk through, give their bids, everything like that. And I was there, and I mean, was kind of like still newer in the game at this time. This was probably around 2022, I want to say, so about 3 years ago.
Right.
And so I was still like kind of shy. Like I didn't know much of anything. Like I was just there, like, okay, I have my job. Like I know I can qualify, and like I was all into like mortgage loans. I was like, I can get an FHA, 203K on this one. Like it does need a little bit of rehab, but ARV should be this, blah blah blah, right? And this is all like all in my head. Like I'm not talking to anybody. And
Yeah.
you kind of just came along and like smiley and like started asking me questions. And then it was like aside from the real estate itself, just building a genuine relationship or like a connection, right? And then after that, I know I didn't end up being the buyer for that property. Someone else got it, which perfectly okay. I had no clue what the fuck I was. I had no idea.
Really? Well, you fooled me. I didn't know.
Right. But after that, you still maintain like a solid relationship with me. Like any time you got any like 2, 3, or 4 units in the Harrisburg area, like you'd send it to me. And I didn't send you like my buy box or anything. I was like in person, verbally, like, hey, this is, kind of what I'm looking for. And this is kind of the price range I'm thinking. Like, if you see anything, let me know.
So that's another thing I would do. When I would meet
Yeah.
people at open houses or at the networking events, I would go home and write it on, like I have a running, like I'm old school. So
Sure.
I just had a running Word doc, like of
Gosh.
like who I would meet. So I would
Yeah.
put like Skyler looking to house hack. This is his price point. You know what I mean? And so then I could flip through. So then when I'd be trying to sell a house,
Yeah.
I mean, when I started, I had 0, right? Now, Honest Homes had 3,000 buyers on their CRM.
Right.
But that was hard for me to like narrow down and find.
overwhelming.
It is. It's very overwhelming.
You
So
feel
I
like you don't have like, a
started-
real connection to those people either.
Exactly.
Right.
And so I just started my own Word doc. And when I left, I had like 431 buyers on it. But
Right.
I would write the description, like, and where I met them so that I could remember. So then when I was flipping through, like if I would get a house in
Actually,
Lewistown or somewhere,
Sure.
I would just flip through my list, you know what I mean? And, oh, this guy buys in Lewistown, call him, and then,
Yeah.
and that helped a lot.
Yeah. So that's crazy. I mean, it was just like that. actual like reassurance of like, oh, she cares. Like
Yeah.
she wants me to, go and get my first house hack.
Right.
You're excited for me. So I don't know. As a beginner, I was like, that made me feel special. I was like, I love this woman. She's squirt. Sending me all these off market deals. So yeah, I mean, definitely, I feel like one of your strong suits was keeping up and like follow ups is what we call it in the industry. But just constantly checking in with these people and send them whatever you think they're looking for.
Right.
So that was really impressive on your end.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Because you are so good at this, have you ever had a deal that you thought wasn't the best or wouldn't cash flow or the ARV wasn't there, but you still managed to sell it? I bet you've had
Yes.
quite a
I mean, I've had somewhere I'd stood at, like, I am picturing this one, it was outside, it was on the other side of Lebanon, I'm blanking on it, like, Schaefer Sound. It was in Schaefer Sound, and I pulled up to this house, and literally, it had no exterior wall in the back. And I was like, "You've got to be kidding me, like, how did they expect me to sell this? Like, how am I going to?" And sure enough, I found somebody, I just kept calling and calling, and I found this guy, he was thrilled with it, he, like, didn't even bat an eye when I showed him. And,
Oh,
like, we literally had to, like, move tarp to, like, walk in, and
Yeah.
he bought it, and I think he made, like, 30 grand on it, like, when he was all said and done.
so he flipped
crazy.
it.
He flipped it.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I had another one in Louisville. Do you know where that is?
Oh, yeah.
I've heard of it.
It's a
Bad
weird,
part.
weird town. But I shouldn't have said that. Some people like Louisville.
That's fine.
Louisville.
Their own opinion.
But that one had, I don't even remember. It was something really weird with the septic system.
Okay.
So
It's
it
always
wasn't
Perry County. There's always septic issues.
exactly. So it wasn't. I don't even think it was a cesspool. It was like this unique
Hmm.
system.
Something.
So I had probably 15 to 20 people out there, and I'm not kidding. Every time I would bring up the septic system, they would, like, short of suck their thumb and run to the car. They were like, "No, I'm not touching it. I wouldn't touch that."
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh my goodness, how am I going to sell this?" So I, again, just kept calling. I got a hold of a realtor who sells in Louisville, and she lives in Louisville. She's like, "Oh my gosh, my brother-in-law's been looking for a place, for a rental property in Louisville." And I told her all about the septic system, and she was like, that's how they all are on the street. I don't care."
Yeah.
And I sold it, like, that day, I remember thinking, "I just never thought we would sell that house." Yeah, so there's just, like, ones like that where you're like,
Yeah.
you think it's impossible, but
That's fine.
there's somebody out there that wants the property.
It's true. Have you ever like run into just an absolutely crazy scenario, maybe where like the disposition process didn't go right? Whereas like you were
Well, like a buyer backs out at the end or
so something similar to that.
Mhm.
I have this story just pop up in my head and maybe it'll like make you think of some example as well. Previously, and this is something that Stephanie and I we've discussed on the podcast before, and something that we should have definitely like pressed charges on because it was a
Oh.
$37,000 we lost
Wait, what
in
happened?
a Mini Cooper.
Oh, what?
So there was this house in Duncannon, and the way I got this lead initially was my dad was the one that was supposed to go through and purchase this house as like a primary residence. Now, granted, Dad, if you're watching this, you're not the most handy person I've ever met, right? It seemed like it needed a substantial amount of work, and the issue was that he got the house for pennies, cents on the dollar,
Mhm.
like absolutely nothing. But there was, I think, like $9 to $10,000 of back taxes and liens and stuff like that that he needed to have paid off. He was like, "Well, I'm not gonna pay that off. I already have to budget for the rehab of the property." And the seller was like, "Well, I'm not paying it off. Like, I already gave you the house for dirt cheap." So they ran into this scenario, and that's when they're both like, "All right, well, neither one of us actually want the house at the end of the day." So my dad knew that, or knows that I was somewhat in real estate at the time. I was pretty involved at this point, but
Mhm.
I don't talk to him too much, so he doesn't really know. Um, so he was like, "Do you want this house? Like, can you do something with this?" I was like, "Well, let me go take a look. Most likely I can." And this is in Duncannon, which is not too far from where I am. Like Susquehanna to Duncannon is like a 15-20 minute
Right.
drive. So I was like, "Oh yeah, this should be easy. Like I got plenty of buyers in this general vicinity." So I go up there, and the issue with this house is that on the backhand side there was a creek, and when this creek overflowed, it started to wash away the uh, ground of the house that it was sitting on. And there was this back porch, and then the entire back porch was like 6-inch slab of concrete that just completely caved in. It was, like, all cracked and
Oh, wow.
right, so then I brought a couple different contractors out there to try to give me a quote or see if they could even possibly get it fixed, and they were all just like, "No," because I was looking at it as more of a fix and flip from my standpoint. I was like, "I can make a killing with a fix and flip on this house," and it was beautiful views, everything like that. Um, every contractor was like, "No, I'm not touching this with a
Oh,
10-foot
boy.
pole. Like,
Mhm.
I'm not even gonna give you a price because 'cause I'm not doing it."
Right.
So I was like, "Alright." At this point, just got a wholesale. So my way of doing it was Facebook Marketplace. I was like, I reached out to my buyers. I had like 20 different showings. None of them wanted it, all because of that same reason. I was like, when in doubt, go to Facebook.
Right.
So that's what I did. I just threw it up there, and like the buyer or the seller was well aware. And I was like, hey, like just letting you know, like I'm throwing this up here for this price. Like I probably won't get it, but you're still guaranteed to get all your stuff paid off at the end of the day, right? Just free and clear of the house. Um, Finally, after like 20 plus showings, nobody from Facebook was interested either. So the one day, the neighbor, we'll call him Luigi, he came walking down the street, little Hispanic dude from like Venezuela or something like that. Accent, funny as hell. Um, he was like, I want the house. I was like, okay, like, have you seen it? He was like, yeah, I broke in the other day. I was like, oh, I was like, okay, like, that's fine. At least you know what we're looking
Sounds about
at.
right.
I was like, well, let's do a formal walkthrough. So we went through and like I discussed with him kind of the situation. I was like, this is the price I'm asking for it, which I believe I was asking 40,000. And he was like, what if I do 30, I think it was $32,000 in a Mini Cooper. I was like, a Mini Cooper? He was like,
I
yeah,
love Mini Coopers. I'd take that.
right? So he was like, yeah, come, like, I'll show you. I was like, okay. So I started walking down the street back to his house, and extremely nice dude. Like he brings me in his house and like in this little shitty Duncan in town. Oh, beautiful house. Like he has like these wood pillar beams and vaulted ceilings, and his deck he built to overhang the creek, and it was all screened in. It was just like it was
Oh.
beautiful, right? And he had like two Mini Coopers just sitting on the side. He was like, "You take one of them." I was like, "All right." So I went in there.
Yo,
I picked which one I wanted. I was like, "I want."
that
Right. And then so then I had him sign the contract.
sounds too good to be true, though.
Right. Well, initially it wasn't. So he props to Luigi. He tried to go about it the right way initially. So he went and he for the earnest money deposit, he didn't understand. He was like, I'm just gonna give you the full amount, like the purchase price. And he took it to the title company in cash, along with the deed of the car and the car keys,
Wow.
and just tried to give it to the title company. And the title company's like, we don't take cash. Like, we need this in a check. Well, I guess this money was like dirty money per se, right? So he was like, I'm not gonna put this in my bank account.
Oh,
He was like, so what he ended up doing the next day, Luigi, the seller of the house ended up going back and just picking up something like random from the house that he must have left previously. And granted, all my dad already had like his stuff kind of moved in as well. Like he had like a bunch of stuff in there. So when Luigi told me like he broke in a couple days ago, I was like, yeah, I don't really like that, but everything's still there, so not a big deal. Um, so yeah, I hear from the title company that day, like, hey, he tried to bring this money in yesterday. We told him we can't accept it. He's got to bring in a check. I was like, all right, let me check in with him, whatnot. So I texted him. I was like, hey, I heard about the situation. Like, do you need help, getting a check for that money? And then we can do it that way. He was like, the house is already mine. Thank you. Goodbye. I was like,
he paid the taxes.
so he did a quick deed, quick deed transfer, quick deed claim, whatever you call it. So he met the owner. He told the owner, he was like, I'm working with Skyler and Stephanie. Like, I'm their buyer, everything. The last thing you can do is just like sign this paper. We'll go to the courthouse, get it notarized, like everything like that. And then, yeah, so he's like, the house is mine. I was like, what are you talking about? So I go over there and like he changed the locks on the house and everything already. Same day. So I'm like, no, like my dad's shit is in there. And my dad worked for Snap-on Tools franchise at the time. So he had like a bunch of like expensive tools and stuff in there. I was like, oh no. So I broke down the door. I was like, and I started looking around. So much of this stuff is gone. I'm like, dude, me and my dad already don't have the best relationship. And now I gotta tell him the house that I'm supposed to be helping him with kind of got like
My goodness.
taken away. And then
Right.
along with all this shit, I'm like, my heart sank.
Yeah.
But also just out of like pure like frustration and anger too. So
Plus, you had put so much work into it too. You'd showed it out.
I was there.
People.
I was there 50 plus times.
Right.
Like it was ridiculous. So I marched my way down to Luigi's house. Right. I'm just like pounding on his door. He's not answering. And then like he has a multifamily property. He just lives in one of the units. So I go to like his tenant's units. I start banging on. I was like, I'm finding this man.
Right.
Nobody answers. So I like walk back up to the property and I'm just waiting there, like peeking through the window, waiting for Luigi to come out. Eventually I see one of the tenants come out. And then I'm like, hey, have you seen Luigi? Yeah, right. And they're like, oh yeah, like he just got home. I was like, oh, perfect. So
Exciting.
I had the tenant knock on the door and then like I stood off to the side. Luigi opens the door, tenant walks out the way, I step in. I'm like, hey, so we need to talk.
Nice.
And then he was like, house is mine. He was like, goodbye.
House is mine. Good. Sounds like he was smarter than he.
He was a lot smarter than he would let on to sound like initially. Yeah, so absolutely crazy story. At the end of the day, did get all my dad's stuff back. He took everything from that property that was my dad's and put it in his own property. So then my dad showed up. And my dad don't play games. He's scary. So, but he brought his gun. He was yeah. It was like I was like, Dad, no, we're not gonna kill nobody. We're just like, here, get your stuff back. We're gonna call it a day. He paid off the taxes. You don't owe any money. Seller doesn't owe any money. Like it is what it is, right?
Oh my god.
So got all the stuff back, whatnot. But just absolutely crazy story of
Oh, you can't make up.
for disposition. Like that was like my craziest encounter.
Right.
I was like, I'm sure like with how many houses you've done, you probably had some crazy stuff like.
But it's crazy on the buyer side and a lot of times, most of the time, the sellers that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they are.
What's the word?
I used to.
Buyers are liars and sellers are worse. Is that how it goes?
Well, I don't know.
I haven't heard that.
Yeah,
No,
I don't heard
I
of it.
feel that.
But some of these sellers, like I would say to Honest Solutions, my company, I would say, we need a social worker on this team because I'm not a social worker. I'm not equipped to help all these people with their problems.
Yeah.
But I would get
People in like dire situations.
yes.
Yeah.
Mm.
You end up becoming a therapist.
You
It's
do.
true.
I mean, they would call me like late at night and talk. And
Yeah.
I had the one lady, she was my favorite, Susan Clover. She came to my house for Easter dinner. Yes.
No way.
No, I got so close to her.
sweet.
She's not talking to me now because I told her she needs to get rid of her storage unit. So she's a little upset with me. But she's so sweet. Like, and she just had like a really hard life,
Yeah.
But
It's
she
so
also like
cool.
was the one like, so her house was in York and she would have her oven. She was a complete hoarder, had stuff everywhere. Like one of the worst ones.
That's
But,
why she has a storage unit.
Oh yeah, because she
She
won't.
still hang.
And that I got for her and all this stuff, and she will not let it go. And it's been like, I mean, we probably sold that house 2.5 years ago. Like she's like
Oh,
in like 70, she's like 75. Like she's never going to have that stuff again. Do you know what I mean? But she was heating her house because her furnace was broken, heating her house with her oven open.
Stop.
oh no way.
And I was like, I would go in, I'd be like, Susan, I told you cannot do this. She'd have plastic bags all around it. And I'm like, Susan, your house is going to catch on fire. And at that point, we were under contract. So I was like, Susan, I'm babysitting this house. Shut this oven.
Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Speaking
It's
of
sad how people live.
houses on fire, did you hear about the last house I sold Nico?
Yes.
Dude. Yeah.
It caught on fire.
Like the day after I sold it to him, it caught on fire.
It was on the weekend and Nico didn't know the tenants yet. So they called him and it was the weekend. So he just ignored the call. And here the tenant was calling to say,
The house burnt down.
made out good on it though.
Did he?
I mean, he still has it, but he made out good on the
Okay.
like insurance and stuff.
That's good.
Yeah.
I was never at the house. I have no clue what it looked like, but based off of what Stephanie had told me, like I guess the tenant that was staying there like had like wires and cords going all throughout, and like it was just set up to be a
It's a nightmare.
a nightmare. So that was crazy. As soon as she relayed that information, like, oh, by the way, that house we just sold Nico caught on fire like the next day. I was like, oh my god, I feel so bad. I had no idea.
It all worked out.
It did.
It all worked.
He's fine.
As long as he's good now.
Yeah.
All right. So you have since then kind of transitioned out of real estate into a new industry. Do you want to give it a
Yeah.
little shout out real quick?
Cabinet Creations.
Cabinet Creations.
Yes. So what happened was Nico, my coworker at Honest Home Solutions, he ended up buying Cabinet Creations back in like the end of June.
Okay.
And it was a small company. It was run by two guys that they were doing a lot of other things. So they were doing, I don't know. I don't really know how many kitchens a month,
Sure.
but they were content with where it was at, and they weren't trying to like grow it crazy because they had their hands in other things. They're investors as well.
Yeah.
So Nico bought it, and he started saying, "Kate, come on, like you got to come over." And with all the wholesale laws that were changing,
Yeah.
I just kind of like kept my eyes open and was just like looking, and I just felt like it was time to change. So
Mhm.
I went over with him in September. It's been a wild ride, absolutely wild.
Yeah.
We have learned so much.
What's kind of like your main job over there?
I'm sales.
Sales. So kind of the same like dispositions.
So I'm still working with all the same people. So our
Exactly.
cabinet
It
company,
transitions so well.
it really did.
Yeah.
So we're really gearing towards investors. So like
Okay.
we'll do retail houses, we've put in really nice kitchens in big homes already, but our main niche is the people that want to do 30 to 100 kitchens a year,
Yeah.
It's great
So
that
with
you
where we've
guys
just come, right,
are
where
amazing.
from what we've just come from,
Yeah.
it's helped.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
yeah.
Anyway, so
Learning a lot.
you guys started.
Never used a measuring tape before this, but
You started in September, you said?
I did.
So what, we're in end of January now. How many kitchens do you think you've like sold already?
Oh my goodness.
Just had to take.
I mean, we're doing like 100 a month.
Oh my gosh.
No, guys, I told you it's been a wild ride.
She is the only one going out to measure.
Uh-huh.
You're the only. Are you
I mean,
serious?
some of the investors send me the list because they know what they're doing, like they're contractors. So some of them will just say, I need this, you know.
How many?
I mean, at one point when I first started, we have our ducks in a row now and we have like systems in place. But at the time, we just didn't expect it to explode that
Hit the
fast.
ground running.
Exactly. And so we were almost like backpedaling to catch up with everything, you know.
That's what he was telling me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at one point, I don't even know when this would have been. This probably was in October. I said to him, I need a U-Haul because we had all these deliveries that had to go out. People were just calling me and calling me. I was like, I can't take it anymore. I'm like not sleeping. So I drove around a U-Haul with my kitchen designer, Kobe, for 2 days. We drove around this U-Haul. I'm like down in Harrisburg City delivering cabinets, like up to the 3rd floor apartments. And I was like, it was crazy. I was like driving over curves. I was like, I don't care. I got cabinets to deliver. But we got it done and we dug ourselves out of that hole. And now we're,
Wild ride.
it has been. But
No way.
it's fun. I trust Nico. Like, I mean, that's what, like when I was making my decision on what to do,
Yeah.
I went with a person that I know works just as hard as me, if not harder.
Yeah.
He wakes up every morning, you know what I mean? And like hits the ground running. So, and he's not going to like,
He wouldn't steer you in the wrong
not
direction.
being successful is not an option. You know what I mean? So,
Really.
So he wouldn't bring you on if he didn't think it was going to be a success.
exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Does he still do a lot of investing on the side?
He does.
Do
He
you-
just bought like a 10 unit in Palmyra.
This guy's busy.
Oh, he's, I know.
Good.
I don't know how he does it.
Cars?
Yes,
Dude, he's
Great.
selling his C6 Z06 Corvette. I saw it on.
he is.
I saw it on Facebook.
I think he only drove it once.
Yeah, it has like no miles on it. It's a beautiful. It's like pristine. There's like 30,000 miles on a 2008 Corvette.
Yeah.
It's
I don't
amazing.
know anything about cars.
Sorry.
Me neither.
Mike
Gets me from A to B. I know.
It made me geek out when I saw it. I messaged him on Facebook actually. It's like, yo, what's going on? If I had the money, I swear to God.
Right. Yeah.
So transitioning, I mean, as you said, like it was pretty easy just transitioning over, not like the amount of workload that you had, but having the same buyers, right? So you're able to transfer that. What kind of like new skills did you have to acquire switching from houses to cabinets?
Well, I had to learn how to measure. And then when I turned 46, I lost my eyesight. So I'm being sarcastic. But so now I'm like with my glasses trying to do it. But no, I've learned a whole lot. Like it's actually been,
Yeah.
A huge learning curve, but
Do you think that
it's
you've
positive.
even now going through cabinets as well met even more investors that
Yes.
than you? So do you think if you ever jump back into real estate as Dispositions, you would even have like a more substantial buyers list?
I would definitely have a more
Okay. Well,
bigger bias list.
honestly, like if I ever get something and I'm not able to
Oh,
sell
yeah,
it,
just
just
call
know I'm
me.
bringing it to you.
Just call me. You know what's funny? I actually thought I was going to keep my feet on both sides.
Yeah.
And Nico and I had talked about it in great length before I jumped over. But honestly, I've just been so busy. It like
So you can't.
hasn't
say
even,
anything.
no, it really hasn't even crossed my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing I forgot to say is in the disposition side.
Yeah.
One thing I did start doing that I think set me apart too is I started selling for other companies under Honest Homes.
As like JV Ventures.
Right.
Okay.
So I became like their dispositions person for their company, but I would run it under Honest Homes. So that helped. Like the 1 year, I think I generated like $70,000 extra dollars just from doing that. Because those little deals add up, you know, 10 here, 5 here, even 3 here, like it adds up, you know.
So, I mean, if this is too in depth, like just tell.
Wow.
I'm just curious on what kind of like your payment structure was for being Dispositions. Was that like a salary hourly job, or were you getting commission based off of all the houses?
So I was
sold?
salary plus commission.
Salary plus
Mhm.
commission. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
I was like, I hope that you're getting commission for how much work you've done.
I wanted salary just to have that
So, like,
base, and then the commission was what made it
Just
worth
to
it.
test this out.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I always wondered that, like, throughout building my real estate team and whatnot, like, the only people I have are VAs. Like,
Right.
I have a couple VAs that do cold calling, one for like database, and then I have bookkeepers. And me and Stephanie, we would both do acquisitions and closings, dispositions, stuff like that.
Mhm.
But then I always thought, like, okay, so once I actually start building this team, like, I hire a disposition person. Ideally, I'd love if it was just an hourly kind of job, right? And I'm able to supply enough leads. But at the end of the day, I was like, I was
Then there's
thinking
not that like
exactly.
gumption
That's
to
what I-
try as well, because
That's what I was going.
what's the motivation if I'm going to get paid the same per week? It's like I wanted to sell it one of that money.
Especially if you see how much money the company's making off of all the houses that you're selling,
Mhm.
then it's like,
And
okay,
you're only
they're gonna
getting a salary.
exactly.
that's
They're gonna
part-
request more money, and
Yeah.
if they don't, then they're just not going to do the job.
Yeah, I think you need that motivation.
Yeah.
Yeah, very true. So, do you think that also, would you think that somebody would be open? I know Nico did this when first starting, but would somebody now be open, do you think, to taking commission only and like taking that bigger risk if it was a disposition kind of job?
I mean, maybe I don't know how they do it at other companies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So because I was hired for the role I was in the beginning, we just kind of never changed.
Yeah.
We, you know what I'm saying? Like it's just kind of
I feel like if you're in that sales role, someone would totally join commission.
just position.
Because
I think
realtors are like,
I think somebody would.
but you were implying off of Indeed, and it's like a whole different world. You're like in real estate,
Right.
basically gonna want a salary because you don't know what it looks like. at
Right.
first. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever think about getting your license?
I did think about it.
Yeah.
I just would have no desire to, and it's probably because of my introduction into real estate and how I got started,
Sure.
I never had a desire to I don't want to, I don't know, I don't want this to sound bad, but I don't have a desire to
Say it.
I don't have a desire to show first time home buyers 30 houses. That just isn't my cup of tea. And I'm used to, I know this sounds silly too. I'm used to the banged up houses that
Right.
are the worst ones on the block. Like that's the ones I'm used to. So
Walking into
I
a brand new
kinda
construction, you might
yeah,
be like,
I'd be
Yeah.
pinching myself. But I kind of like that niche.
Yeah.
I like the investor side of it, you know?
I agree. I love how like every situation is so unique. When it
So
comes to-
different.
Yeah, it's like whether it's the house itself or the seller or the buyer, it's completely different for
Right.
everything. I feel like, I mean, kind of same way as you. Like, I don't have my license yet. Granted, I am in the process of doing
I was gonna say you're gonna have to.
just because I'm gonna have to. But yeah, I never had the desire really to go and get the license before they started changing the regulations and restrictions, everything
Right.
like that. So now it's like, okay, this is a whole new world I'm gonna get into. But you can clarify. Once you are an agent, I mean, you're able to just pick and choose, right?
Who you work with.
Yeah, who you work with and like whether you just want,
Oh, there's so many benefits
certain
to having it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
and you just want to like, if you wanted to strictly be only a listing agent, like that's a possibility
Yep.
as well.
Yeah.
Are you able to refer buyer agents
Yeah.
or buyers to other agents? And
That's what a lot of agents do, like as they scale their careers and they just don't have the
Absolutely.
bandwidth
yeah,
to help buyers under X dollar amount. They refer it out. Or they hire a buyer's agent.
gotcha.
I had realtors, I would work with realtors and I would get them paid pretty good. Because then they would call me if they walked into a house that they were like, oh, you're gonna need like $20,000 to fix this up. And I would be like, do not leave your business card on the counter. Like tell them to call me. I'll still get you paid.
Yeah.
You know, if we
So
can
you're
buy it.
saying on like a listing appointment.
Right. Like they would go to a listing appointment, they'd be like, I don't know what to do with
We
this
can't
house.
put this on market.
Exactly. It's too dated or something like that. And then they would call me. And so then I would still get that realtor paid.
Yeah.
You know,
And obviously, like I know initially when you said you
kind of runs back the trail. Sorry.
oh no, it's okay. I'm going back even further.
Don't like.
So I know when you said like when you first started out, like you started in acquisitions for a little bit, you kind of learned that side. Then obviously you mastered the disposition side. Did you ever think about going off on your own and like doing your own company?
No, because there's a lot involved in it. There's a lot
so
of
many
different
moving
moving
parts.
parts, you know, that
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I loved our team. Like we had a great team, you know, and we all had a certain role.
Yeah.
A lot of people have asked me if I ever thought doing acquisitions like what Nico did. And
I don't
no,
acquisitions
it
do.
takes a special person because it's two different sales.
completely.
Okay, so acquisitions, that sales is you're meeting with the seller, you have to have empathy. You have to be able to sit down and be with them for a couple hours and really get
Yeah.
those pain points out and see why they're in this situation. And then you kind of have to be able to pull out a
Lowball
dagger
them.
and be like,
By the way.
this is all I can do. And so I just don't think I would be, good at that. So
It's rough.
disposition sales, there's really no bluffing. I mean, I would joke with people
this is
as
the
a
product.
my God, the people I'm working with, they know what they're doing. They know their numbers.
Sure.
They know what they're looking for. So there's not I would try to bluff. I'd be walking through a house that had big holes in the floor and I'd be like, oh, look, this is special new
Like a
filter.
trick.
Yeah, I would just make stuff up and they'd be like,
Yeah.
Kate, stop, But, or, a open floor plan for a fire damaged house, oh, this is great,
Feel the
but-
breeze coming right.
Exactly. But really for mine, there was no bluffing. It was
Yeah.
this is what it is,
You see what you get.
Exactly. And then they would make the decision.
That's what you're saying.
That goes back to your authenticity. I feel like you're so
Yeah.
authentic.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So kind of if you were to start back over, right? Obviously, you found your niche in dispositions, but if you were to go getting freshly back into real estate after everything you already know now, is there anything different that you would do? Like maybe a different role? Would you stay in dispositions? Would you?
I would say in Dispositions.
Yeah, I don't blame
It was just a good fit for me.
you. Yeah.
And honestly, Nico and I are a great duo.
Mhm.
So he made my job easy because he was so good at buying. So he could
is.
buy these houses at a great price that made it really easy for me to sell. So
Okay.
we were just like a good team.
One time he almost convinced me to sell a house to him for less than another offer I had. I don't know how the fuck
You gotta watch that guy.
I was like,
He's so good.
I was like, I almost said yes, but I was like, I have another offer, $10,000 more. I was like, wait, like your Lamborghini's not gonna trick me today, buddy.
He almost had you though.
He almost did. I was like, you're really good at whatever you're doing here. Like I was still fresh in the business. I was like, hey, I need to learn how you do that.
Yeah.
When you did decide to go off with Nico for your new venture, was there any like hard feelings from the Honest Home family, or what did that transition-
I just tried to handle it well. Like I'd give him a 2-week notice and I filled out my full 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and I did tell them I was going with Nico. I think it might have been stung a little bit, but it was just the choice I had to make
Yeah.
for my family.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Absolutely.
And so getting into real estate, obviously, like you kind of had no prior experience. You didn't really have any knowledge or any skills related to real estate, right?
No, I mean, they would be talking about stuff like EMDs. Like I heard you say it earlier, and that made me think of it. I remember Googling like underneath the table, like EMD. Didn't even do.
Cool.
Like I knew nothing.
Okay. So from there, I mean, what was like one skill that you realized that you kind of lacked in the beginning? Like maybe it was one of your weaknesses that you knew that you had to build up to be more successful later on.
I would say maybe the paperwork and like contracts and stuff like that. Like, I mean, I didn't know.
Dude, I hate the transaction part.
Right. I mean,
Good team comes in handy.
exactly. And Kelsey's like the
Coordinator.
best at transaction coordinating. So,
Yeah. Is she still with the company? Previous?
not too much longer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully. I don't think he'll watch this, honestly.
Okay.
But you never know.
Like, oh my God, you guys are going.
Everyone for Neil.
Stop that.
Guys, enough.
Shut up.
Okay.
Oh my God.
I mean, do you have anything else that you want to touch on? I mean, as far as disposition. Oh, sorry. One last question I thought of. I'll let you go right after.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you ever cold call cash buyers for building a buyer's list?
So it was called Investor Lift. Did you remember that?
I know Investor Lift.
Yeah. So I would call people off that.
Okay.
I never would put. I don't want to say never. Okay. Don't know where to start with my thoughts. So a lot of other companies in the dispositions position,
Yeah.
they send out like an email blast. Okay. So they would like sit there and put the details together, make a beautiful,
Spreadsheet.
spreadsheet and send it out
Right.
to, those 3,000 buyers that I said that were on our list. I personally never thought that worked. First of all, I'm a little impatient, so I didn't want to wait around for someone to call me. I wanted to like
Get a
go after it.
Things
But
happen,
there.
yeah.
I never had somebody really respond to those emails. I mean, maybe a couple times, but a lot of those people on the 3,000 list, they're tire kickers. They've joined your list somewhere throughout, and they're not like
They've been to 1,000 meetups and never bought a
exactly.
property.
And they might have already put you to junk mail.
We all know those people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I would use Investor Lift to call like cash buyers that like were in areas that I didn't know.
Oh,
So like
you got something like
Reading.
Yeah.
I mean, now I have like 10 good people in Reading that I know to call, but at the time I didn't, right? So then I would go on Investor Lift and put in the address and see the mile radius, and I would just start calling and I'd be like, hey, do you happen to be a cash buyer? Blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like I would just start talking to them.
Yeah.
So that I would
Gotcha.
cold call for that.
Sorry, one more question I just thought of too.
Yeah.
An issue that I've run into in the past, right? Wholesaling can be like, I don't want to say like a dirty business, right? But like some people look at it as unethical.
Some
right?
people look down on it. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And at the end of the day, I mean, we know the goal of wholesaling is just to help the seller at the end of the day, right? But did you ever run into an issue where it's like you're trying to wholesale this house and this was probably like maybe in the very beginning, unless Nico had already mastered everything beforehand. Where like you had to bring buyers to a property and the seller might not necessarily have understood everything that's going on. They're questioning like, why do you keep bringing different people to the property? And like, how would you handle a situation like that as a
I
disposition?
mean, you know what happened all the time. It wouldn't matter if you told sellers till you're blue in the face
Yeah.
exactly what was going on. Some of them just never
just
got
doesn't
it. They
click.
just never got it.
Yeah.
So sometimes would, because, okay, so the goal, we always had numerous exit strategies. So we didn't know all the time if we were going to wholesale it, right? So we might flip it. That might be a legit exit.
Yeah.
So I would start the conversations off with, I need to get contractors out here. And I would say, and other investors, but that would usually go right over their heads,
Yep.
you know, just to see the property. But then I would have the conversation. I mean, we would tell them what we were doing up front, but they just didn't seem to get it. So then, once we knew we were going to wholesale the property, we would sit down with them and say, this is the direction we're moving.
Yeah.
You know, we have a buyer. Everything's great. This is going to be the settlement date. So we would spell it out to them, but it didn't always work. I mean, honestly,
Not
not always.
wholesalers do that though, and that's why the industry gets the bad rap.
Right. Well, we were honest from solution. Yes.
Gotta be honest. Right?
That's right.
Anything you want to touch base on?
So if you were to start over today, what's one thing that you would do differently, if anything?
You mean like leaving?
If you were to start over in real estate?
No, I wouldn't do anything different. I love the team. I loved the job. Like we really, it was
you guys worked well
together. We worked very well together. It was very fast paced.
Yeah.
You know, I've met a lot of cool people. Like I honestly, my only regret with real estate is that I didn't start in my 20s like you two. You know what I mean?
Everyone says
No, I'm serious.
Or like, my only regret is that I didn't start sooner.
I was just starting when I was 18.
So there you go.
Went to
Take action.
Yeah. So late. Yeah, you're such a late bloomer.
All right. I mean, I pretty much covered everything. Do you have anything else that you want to close out with?
I don't think so.
Well,
If you need a good kitchen, call Cabinet Creations. Shout out.
hit her up.
Oh, one more question. What's your average typical, let's say a $300,000 house, what would a typical kitchen cost you? That's a hard question, but
that is a hard question
good
because it
pricing.
depends on the line. So like
Yeah.
we have an investor line, which is the Vita line that you and I have been talking about.
Yeah.
And that's really like perfect for like flip situations, buy and holds, like ones that you don't want to, you're watching your money, you have a budget, but you want to put in a good product. You know what I mean? You don't, especially if it's like a buy and hold, you don't want to be getting our phone call
that the cabinet
in 6 months. You're right, exactly. So, and actually even Nico has Vita in his own kitchen. So it is, and I'm actually going to put that in my, he is usually.
Do you guys have like a store that people can just come to? And
We do. It's in York.
okay.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, you should come look at all our quartz and granite and our countertops.
I'm gonna do that one of these.
Okay. Yeah, please. So
I'll
I'll let you know the address. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I am truly grateful for you coming on. I know
Thank
like
you for having me.
you were nervous in the beginning, but like
What's the persistence? You've asked me a couple times.
I did. It's just a conversation. You did absolutely amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for
It was actually really fun.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Is there one piece of advice that you would like to leave the audience with related to dispositions, just to kind of help them?
I think my only piece of advice would be networking. Like, just
Okay.
really get out there, put yourself out there. Don't take yourself too seriously.
Good advice.
Make corny videos.
Just
Yeah,
network.
take action.
Yep, take action.
All right. Awesome.
All
Well,
right.
with that being said, we will catch you guys on the next one. Peace.